me getting older and me never feeling like I was good enough, never feeling like that I would be truly accepted, never feeling confident in
Yeah.
my own skin. But it really, like, the depression part really kind of started to really surface. I'd probably say, ooh, like, there's like moments, in like when you're in high school, you're like first boyfriend, you're depressed, like
Right.
you graduate, you're like, yeah, you're depressed. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think for me, like the biggest opener of my eyes and realizing like, okay, like I need help, was probably after Chloe was born. So
Okay.
literally probably only, yeah, only like 7 or 6 years old, 6 years ago.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. You just heard a clip from today's talk with my friend Sam. I'm so glad we got to do this. It's taken a little bit of back and forth with both of us, but we finally made it happen. And I'm very excited and honored to get to talk to people. And Sam is someone that I met in my early years of Pomona at New Life Church, and I'm very happy for this talk. I hope you guys enjoyed the clip we just played. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation today with my friend Sam talking. Um anyway, thanks for I think I asked you about this a while ago, because I think I was seeing some like Facebook status updates of you talking about your, mental health, which is cool to throw it out on Facebook. That's what we all need, a little bit more of that, right?
Yeah, I just feel that when we try to, I think the beauty about Facebook is that it lets us realize that we're actually connected, that we're all actually going through the same situations. We're all processing information, not necessarily the same way, but we experience
Yeah.
depression, we experience anxiety, we experience stress. And I think one of the hardest things about mental health for me was just the feeling of isolation and feeling alone,
Right.
and not feeling that you have permission to be honest and forthright, especially being in ministry for so many years. You
Right.
feel like you have to put on like this, like the pastor's face, the pastor's wife's face. Like you're always smiling, you're always happy, you're always
Yeah.
you're full of faith. So by
Mm,
default, if you're full of faith, there's no room for depression. There's no room for anxiety,
right.
and when you do mention like, oh, like I'm kind of going through something, like what's the atypical answer is like, oh, you need to pray more, like, oh, you read the Bible more. But then you recognize like, yeah, that stuff is great, and it's good. But at the end of the day, like, I feel that, at least in my experience, there's always kind of been um like this kind of suppression of like, oh, like you can't feel these things because you're not supposed to, because you're a
Right.
godly person.
Hmm. Hmm.
um so going through a couple of different seasons of depression and just realizing like, you know what, like I want to give people permission to be okay, being vulnerable, understanding that, hey, like I'm there with you too.
Right.
um you're not alone. You don't have to go through this alone. You can know that, even
Right.
like the most godliest people, like Elijah, they have these moments when they're just like, God, just let me die, and
Oh yeah, under the
you know,
tree. Jonah.
yeah,
Jonah,
yeah.
right?
No, well, not even Jonah, like,
Jeremiah, probably. I mean, he
no,
said his.
Isaiah. So Isaiah in the book of Second Kings, it talks about how he had just, done these amazing things. It was what's her name? Bathsheba? No, not Bathsheba. Oh my gosh, my brain. Jezebel. Jezebel and
Oh
her,
yeah.
and like
That's
how
what
like
you call a girl that rejects you when you ask her out.
Jezebel.
You call her that. Yeah.
But like
Just
she
kidding.
straight up, like it was like the fact that he who like had just defeated these prophets and like called
Right.
fire down onto this pillar of wet wood. And he like was so just like, he should have been like at the height, the pinnacle of his spiritual walk, right? Like, oh my
Right.
gosh, this is amazing.
Right.
But like then Bathsheba, or not Bathsheba, Jezebel's like, okay, well I'm gonna kill you now. And he's like, I'm gonna go into
I'd
the desert
rather.
now. I'm gonna self-isolate. God kill me. Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
even
Well.
even these great prophets go through these things. So for me, like I said, it's being
Yeah.
open and honest on social media I just want to give people permission, like, hey, like, you're not alone. It's okay. It doesn't make you crazy. It doesn't mean that you're not a person of faith. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Like, we all go through this stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. So do you think though that do you well may- is your not because you're not a pastor's wife anymore, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
No,
is
no
that like better for you? I mean, I guess that's a big because I relate to I don't relate to being a pastor's wife, but I relate to I've been in church my whole life. Like I'm
yeah.
38 and it's not, and I think I totally get what you mean. Even at New Life though, there was I went and visited recently. I went on Super Bowl Sunday and like heard Craig preach, and I was like, "You're
Aw,
saying the same thing you were saying when I was here." But he had the whole like growing healthy, like emotional healthy spirituality, which seemed like there was room for like, "Hey, it's okay if you're sad, right?" But I know what you mean. Most places, it's like just so I don't know. Is it better now? Because that was a while ago for you guys,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah, I think it's better now. I mean, I
yeah.
still, serve in some kind of capacity in like different churches out here.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay. Doing
so like,
worship? Are you doing worship?
not at the moment. I stepped away from
Oh,
that. I just was like,
man, I love it when you used to do
I was
worship.
doing it for a while, and I still have trigger points that I need to work on when it comes to
Okay.
worship stuff and just ministry. I still have not PTSD so to say, but there's still areas where I'm like, like I'm projecting this on this situation onto a church that it's not like it doesn't fit. Like I'm
Right.
projecting like my feelings of rejection or my feelings of not being good enough on different ministries, and I'm like, okay, like I'm not fully healed in this area yet, so it's just probably better if I just kind of step away.
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
just to kind of get like, refocused, but also yeah. But with that being said, I mean, I do work at a church currently, and
Oh,
work at a
nice.
preschool church.
Oh,
And with that being said, like, I mean, I still feel like I can be transparent. I feel that I can be open and honest. That a church that I work at, they're a really good church. And even like talking with my boss, she is just
yeah.
she really makes me feel comfortable and like, approachable, and that I can be open and honest with her about like my struggles. And even this past couple of months, I've been going through a lot, a lot.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
even having her, and even having like the leadership board of that church that I work at just stand behind me and support me, and be there for me as I'm kind of navigating
Mhm.
through some traumatic stuff, has really been great. But yeah,
Okay.
I don't think all churches are, trying to suppress, or make you feel like you can't have these struggles. I think
Right.
there's a good chunk of them that can do that, but I think that there's definitely a shifting point in the church, which is great,
Right.
of about like, okay, yeah, like what is the human experience, and how does it connect with God, and like God and his healing power, and with Jesus. So I
Right.
think it's a good step in the right direction,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. Sorry, we just started talking and just going like right into it. But yeah, so well, I guess okay, so let's go backwards a little bit though. Was there a certain age that you were like, I think this is depression, or
Yeah,
I feel sad a lot because whatever. Now it's more common. The language is more common now. Like
yeah,
if your kids were struggling and you took them to a doctor, that would be different than. So anyway, that's my long question for you.
yeah,
When did you start
yeah.
first realize this stuff maybe was like, oh, I think this is a thing?
Well, so my childhood, and as I say this, I just want to make something really clear.
Yeah.
My mom has since gotten help. My mom, she
Okay.
was diagnosed with depression, severe anxiety.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And she got help. But before she got help, we come from a Hispanic home, a Mexican home, and mental health isn't something that's really discussed. It's not really something
Right.
that's like
Right.
um, something that's like out in the open. So my mom had a very traumatic childhood.
Okay.
She grew up in poverty in Juarez, Mexico,
Okay.
and I mean, I'm not going to go too much into her story because it's not in my place to say, but
Right.
a lot of what she experienced, and even migrating here to the United States, there was a lot of tension in her heart, a lot of tension in her brain of just things that she had experienced, things that she had to do to get here, trying to find a better life for herself. So, that being said, growing up with my mother was incredibly hard. She was not emotionally
Mm.
available. She was someone that you just never knew the feeling, like how she was going to be that day. You never knew
Okay.
she was in a good
Yeah.
mood, in a bad mood. One of my
Okay.
earliest child experiences that I have of my mom, and I use this example because it kind of has been like this overall theme of like my a life and something that I've been kind of breaking out of. But I remember being like 5 or 6 years old, and my mom's bed was messy, and I remember thinking like, okay, mom's always mad, so if I make her bed for her,
Hmm.
maybe she won't be mad today, like this like kind of people pleasing,
Interesting.
like, okay, like I can, her emotions are not something that's good. Maybe I can help control her emotions. Maybe I can do something to kind of like, help her in the right direction.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so I made the bed and
Okay.
she comes in and I'm like, Mom, I made your bed. And
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
response was, "Why'd you make my bed? It's dirty." Like, so pretty much I got yelled at for making her bed, like trying to
Okay. Like
help
it's
her.
not funny, guys. It
Yeah,
wasn't. It's funny talking about it a little bit
it's
now,
funny
but it
talking
was. It
about it
wasn't.
now,
Anyway,
but it
I've
wasn't
done that
funny
on
then.
here. I'm like, why am I laughing at your
Oh, no,
traumatic
but
story?
you have to laugh. You have to laugh because it's like, what, like,
Hmm.
the other response is to cry, right? So,
Well, I
um,
will say
yeah.
real quick, that was how I was with my dad, not with my mom, because my dad was very angry and yelled, and it was always that walking on
Yeah.
eggshells and that thing where you're like, oh man, I hope, if I spill my cereal, I'm gonna get yelled at, right? And then I'm sure
Yes.
you now as a parent, you would like absolutely like probably never do that
Oh
to
gosh,
your
no,
kids,
when
right?
my girls, when they make mistakes, I'm
Yeah,
like, "Let me know so I can come and help you." Like, for them, I'm
yeah,
like, "You will be more in trouble if you try to hide things from me. Like, I am here, as your person. I'm here to guide
yeah,
you."
that's good. Yeah,
And a lot of it has to do with like how I was raised.
for sure.
My mom, like I said, and I love my mom. I love her, love
Right.
her, love her.
So
She's
you didn't know what you
not,
were gonna get, so that made
yeah,
this tension. Yeah,
yeah,
anyway.
they made
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
tension, and plus, like, my mom, she wasn't, she was there, that she'd participate in, like, Girl Scouts, stuff like that, but, like, I think when it came to, like, helping, part of being a parent is to build your children up, to love themselves, to be confident in themselves, and, I didn't
Right.
have that growing up necessarily with my mom. My
Mm,
dad tried his best,
okay.
but that all bled into, me getting older and me never feeling like I was good enough, never feeling like,
Mm,
that I would be truly accepted, never feeling confident in
yeah.
my own skin. But it really, like, the depression part really kind of started to really surface. I'd probably say, ooh, like, there's like moments, in like when you're in high school, you're like first boyfriend, you're depressed, like
Right.
you graduate, you're like, yeah, you're depressed. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think for me, like the biggest opener of my eyes and realizing like, okay, like I need help, was probably after Chloe was born. So
Okay.
literally probably only, yeah, only like 7 or 6 years old, 6 years ago,
Oh,
uh,
okay. Oh, wow.
was when I really realized that, okay, like I'm really struggling here, with anxiety, and depression.
Right.
We went on this family trip, and the entire family trip, I was just on edge the entire time. We spent all this money on this trip, and I remember thinking, like, looking at my daughters and just like, why am I acting this way? Why am I so bothered by all this noise, or why am I so bothered by all this people? Like, why am I so overstimulated? And
Mm,
recognizing, like, I remember going to the hotel that night, and I told Cody, I was just like, dude, like, I need help. Like, I need to be on
mm,
some kind of medication or something, because like I
interesting.
just feel like life itself is just edgy. It just feels like there's so much of an edge in life.
Right.
I need something to
Mm,
help take that edge off and to make it not so scary, not
okay.
so overwhelming. But I think a lot
Mm,
of my childhood, the uncertainty of things, of not knowing what mood you're going to walk into.
right.
My parents, they went through a separation, for a year where they were going to get divorced. By the grace of God, they didn't get divorced, and that's when my mom decided to get like actual help, and she got help, and she's been
Oh,
amazing
okay.
ever since then. And that happened when I was 17.
Oh,
But
okay. Okay.
yes, but since then, like there's been a lot of things that have surfaced. Self harm. I am no stranger to self harm
Okay.
because
Hmm.
you know
What does that mean? I mean, if you want to share, but like what is it? Like cutting or just what do you mean?
not cutting. So and I've never cut, but I used to. So this kind of goes back to childhood.
Right. Right.
When you have a mom that's not emotionally present, the only thing that you like, it's like I came up with this like narrative in my brain where it was like, if I'm in physical pain, if I'm sick, if I'm hurting, if I'm injured, I always felt like my mom would give me attention. And
Hmm.
so there was like this like underlying
Interesting.
kind of like narrative that I kind of created, like, okay, like, so I remember, and this happened because one time when I got hurt, I remember like my mom hugged me, and I remember just thinking like, oh my gosh, like this hug is like so good. And it had happened after like a TV had fallen like next to me, and she was like freaked out, so she like hugged me, right? And so I began to have this idea of like associating pain with attention. And I didn't
Interesting.
realize it
Yeah.
at the time, but it
Not
bled
not
into.
funny when it happened, but funny
Not
now,
funny what
guys.
happened,
Yes,
but I
totally.
began
Yeah.
to attribute, pain and physical
Hmm.
pain with attention, and it
Yeah.
even started to bleed into my marriage, actually, where whenever me and Cody, like all couples fight, all couples are gonna have, disagreements and misunderstandings.
Right.
But I would get to these places in our disagreements where I would get so just like bothered and like I feel like hopeless, right? Because I felt like, oh, like I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard, I'm not being understood. So my default would be like this just overwhelming sense of just like I can't control myself. So I mean, it was
Hmm.
not being common to for Cody to watch me like throw myself on the floor, to throw my head into the wall, to
Interesting.
punch myself
Okay.
in the head, not because I wanted to really harm myself, but because there was this correlation that I had created in my mind where physical harm, me being,
Hmm.
physically injured, will lead to someone being like, "Oh, wait, 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 like, come here, let me hug you, let me hold you."
Right.
So I've
Right.
been, the past couple of years, and by the way, I haven't had an episode like that in long, long time, like many,
Okay.
many years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think part of it, and me being able to get past that, and I think would be self-awareness.
Right. Right.
And I think self-awareness has really helped me understand myself, understand what triggers me, understand my mental health, and like what leads me down like these different roads, of
Hmm.
that I used to take to try to get attention or get sympathy or get empathy, but realizing like, oh, I don't need to do that. I'm not this
Right.
5-year-old girl making my mom's bed hoping that like I'm going to be praised. Like I'm an adult, and I have like I can I don't have to be afraid anymore. Like I am
Hmm.
loved, I am cared for, I am cherished, and I don't need to self-harm to get that feeling of cherishment. I don't need to self-harm to get that hug, like I just need to ask for it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I mean, that's interesting. Yeah, because I think we feel things in our bodies, right? I mean, I think maybe not everybody knows that, but that's a very part of any kind of thing. And so, experiencing it in your body is normal, right?
yeah,
But yeah, I think I get what you're saying because it's like, yeah, you just that is part of growing up. It's like you scrape your knee and your mom, gives you like 10 bandages and then you get to
yeah.
like, get tucked in at night and you're like,
And the kisses, the boo boo
yeah, and
kisses.
now you're like, wait, what do I do now? I'm an adult. My mom's not here, right? And it's like
Mom's ears.
you're like you've been a grown man for a really long time. But when you said that okay, so when you said that you needed help, you said like 6 years ago or whatever or something like that,
Mhm.
right? What was like did you see a doctor at all or did you kind of like what was the journey like of because that's a really important thing, like you recognizing that you need help. That's the struggle with a lot of these things is
Yeah,
that people don't ask for help for like a really long time, right? Like I've,
Yeah.
so what
Yeah.
was the, yeah, what was that like? Like, not that medication has to happen, because anyway, I have a lot of newer thoughts about that, but like, what did you do to get help?
So, like I said, we were at a vacation, and that's when I
Yeah,
realized I needed help. I think I've needed help before then. I just think I wasn't ready to accept
right.
it.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Especially like I said, in my family, like with my mom, she, what she was diagnosed with, there's always like that fear of like, well, I'm not my mom. And I think a lot of people,
right.
you know, we find medication or help to be taboo because we don't want to admit to ourselves that we need help. Like we don't want to admit that we are broken, that we're,
Right.
there's something wrong with us. And especially, like when it's just, it's hard. For me, it
Right.
was a really fairly simple journey. After I had that conversation with Cody, I just, within days, I made an appointment with my primary doctor. And she was like, "Hey, okay, well, like, what are you here for?" And I'm like, "I think I'm struggling with like really, really severe anxiety and a little bit of depression, but mainly anxiety. Like mainly just feeling
Mm,
like always, I'm like, my heart's always racing. I'm always just like worried that something's bad is going to happen. That something like I'm just waiting for this guillotine just to drop every single day, even though
mm,
there's nothing for it to happen, right?
right.
Like, and so she's like, okay. So she gave me like this like questionnaire. She had me fill out this questionnaire. She's not like a psychologist. She's not a therapist,
Right.
um, but I had been seeing her for a while, and she gave me this like this long questionnaire, and she was like about like, okay, like on a scale of 1 to 5, like when like how do you feel about when this happens or when this happens? So I just kind of made my way along and marking off like, okay, this is what my response would be, or this is how it made me feel on a scale of one
Right.
to five. And at the end of it, she looks at, she's like, "Yep, you have severe anxiety disorder," and I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
"Oh, it
Hmm.
was that easy."
I'm trying
Like,
to think if I've done one of those before, probably. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So it's
We
more
like
anxiety than depression. Okay.
More anxiety
Got
than
got it.
depression.
Got
The
it. Okay.
anxiety, like, it was like this, like, loop, right? Like, you
Got it.
feel it would, for me, like, the anxiety would make me feel like I had no control over my life. I had no control over my situation. I have no control over my emotions. And because
Right.
you start feeling like you're out of control, you start to feel hopeless. Now, what is
Yeah.
hopelessness but a
Right.
byproduct, or
Mm,
a gateway into depression? So
right.
my anxiety would put me in this crazy cycle of like anxious, 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 depressed, anxious, 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 depressed. So for me to get help, so the doctor, when I did start medication, so she put me on medication, and I did begin to read like books on my own, a lot of articles about what is anxiety, what is
Mm,
depression. Um, I started going down like this rabbit hole of like, okay, what is self
right.
awareness, right?
Right.
To be self aware, to recognize your own body and feel your own body and understand your emotions, understanding your mind, understanding your triggers. Um, but when she put me on initially on the medication, she put me on Lexapro 20 milligrams, which I think is like one of
Oh, yeah.
the dosages that you can be put on.
I took
But
it
I
like a
remember,
long time ago for a little bit, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
like
like
that's like a low dose, you mean? Oh,
it's like
oh.
yeah, 20 milligrams. I guess is supposed to be like one of the higher dosages of that.
Oh, oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Gotcha.
And I remember, the first, like, month of being put on it, like, I thought I was gonna die, like, because
Really? Hmm.
it's almost like the medication, so I was already anxious, and the medication for, like, a month made me, like, even more anxious. Like, I remember just, like,
Oh,
shaking,
that's okay. Okay.
like, the shaking, the, like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is making it worse." And I remember, I had started the medication, and 2 weeks into the medication, I had a dentist appointment, and I'm, like, trying to, like, keep my mouth open, like, for them to, do what they're doing, and the entire time, I remember, like, my jaw, it just, like, I kept on, like, my teeth were chattering,
Oh,
and the dentist was just like, "Okay, like, I need you to, like, stop." I'm like, "I can't stop." Like, "I'm sorry." I'm
oh
like,
wow.
"Oh,
Come back.
like,
Oh, that's funny. Come back another time. Wow, I also hate the dentist too. Those are too bad.
yeah."
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, like, once
Hmm.
the medication, finally leveled
Gotcha.
everything out, it
Yeah.
was like looking through life through a set of lens where life wasn't so scary, where I wasn't on edge, where I
Okay.
wasn't fearing the next thing to happen. Um, But I think a bigger part of that, so I was on 20 milligrams for a long time. And then 2.5 years ago, I moved out here to Texas. And
Okay.
when I got here, it was just life changing for my mental health. I literally went from 20 milligrams to 5 milligrams because I felt
Oh,
like
okay. That's good.
at ease, being away from the busyness of the city, being away from
Right.
the busyness of Southern California, the constant worry of like, is my car going to get broken into? Is, like, who am I going to deal with today? What am I going to experience at the gas station? All of that just being
Hmm.
completely removed and moving to a small town where literally we're like one of the top 10 cities in Texas. That's one of the top 10 safest cities.
Really?
um, yeah, was just mind changing, life changing for me, for my daughters to know that like
Right.
I'm safe. And I think with mental health, like we talk about, like medication and therapy, but I think another thing that's been really good for me in
Right.
regards to mental health is just changing the setting,
Hmm.
getting away from the busyness of life, getting away from the fast pace, um, the traffic, everything like that, away from Southern California and going somewhere where I'm just surrounded by nature, surrounded by deer. I'm surrounded by red cardinals, butterflies, fireflies, and to be able to just be outside, to be present, to be grounded
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
nature, and by default, like grounded in God.
Right.
It's been really good.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I like that. I mean, yeah, the medication thing that, you know, it's not for everybody. And
It's not
anyway,
for
I
everybody.
have a lot of thoughts on it. I think if you can try to, you know, anyway, I won't go. I mean, I think a short-term effect is good, but trying to manage without it, which is hard, right? Especially like
Yeah,
to the point you're making about anxiety, right? Or what the definition of an episode is, I think when you don't feel like you're in control, right? And it's always the
yeah,
combination. It's like anxiety and depression go together, or just racing thoughts, or all these things. But yeah, I haven't considered too much. Now I'm thinking about like where I live is, there's a lot of things I like about California, right? The weather and stuff, but it's like, I remember being at your house back in the day, like preaching in the backyard, right? And there's like sirens every like 3 minutes, right? And dogs barking. And it's just like, and I think it's funny thinking about it now, but probably in the moment for all of us, we're just like, kind of like, or even like South Campus, right? With Encounter. I was like, this is
yeah.
a horrible part of town. Which, by the way, they're like selling that building now. But
Uh,
like, and it's not to like, let's be negative about Pomona, but it's like, I think you could be in something stressful, and you just get used to it, right? And so
yeah.
it's like, yeah,
And it's overstimulation. I mean, our
right,
our bodies, like even
right,
reading and researching more, like our bodies weren't made to be this overstimulated.
right,
The
exactly,
constant sound, the constant sirens, the constant people, the high density, it really, just over your system is just so just like over stimulated, and you can't find like a moment's peace because you're just constantly having to worry about what sound, what's this, like there's just so
right,
much
right,
noise. So to go from that kind of a setting, and it's hard because like I mean
yeah,
Southern California, like I mean I loved growing up there. I grew up there for 35 years of my life, and I always had good experiences, but into my adult life with my anxiety and my depression, like
yeah,
it wasn't a place where I could truly be free of that. And even like as you like medication, like
right.
like right now I'm actually in the process of finally weaning myself off of any kind of medication and
Okay,
learning to
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
and learning to find ways to ground myself, whether it be through
right.
breathing exercises, whether it be through a weighted blanket, a really firm hug. Um, Even now, like whenever I'm in this moment when I'm like feeling just like there's like a running joke in my house where it's like mom's going into the woods, which basically is like mom's
Mom's
stressed
going in.
out, mom's like on her last nerve, and mom's gonna go walk into the woods to just regulate her body and
That's
regulate her
awesome. I like
emotions.
that.
And so my girls know, and they see like like sometimes mom has to go to timeout too. when mom's feeling
Mm. Okay.
overwhelmed or stuff like that, like
Like
mom
that.
makes time to go into the woods to be, and then what I'll do is I'll go into the woods and I'll just touch all the different trees and I'll touch,
Hmm.
the different barks and I'll touch the leaves and I'll sit and I'll process and I'll cry and I'll grieve and I'll scream, whatever. But like being out in nature and the
Yeah.
silence and the quiet and the stillness, like I'm able to, I'm not overstimulated. I'm able to reground myself and be like, okay, this sucks. This is awful, but
Hmm.
I'm not going to feel like this forever. And I think that's been
Yeah.
another thing
Hmm.
for my mental health is reminding myself, like, I mean, I know we were supposed to do this for a long time ago.
No,
And
it's okay. Yeah,
I
yeah.
came back and I'm like, hey, I'm kind of dealing some stuff, and
Sure. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was, and then it got better. And the
Yeah.
2024 has just been pretty testy.
Sure.
Something happened. I'm not going to go into detail, but something happened to my family about 2 weeks ago that has created PTSD,
Hmm.
and my daughter Bailey's exhibiting signs of anxiety because of the situation that happened. Um, Chloe, she's never had night terrors, and she's like having night terrors now. And so for me to be there and like trying to walk them through, like, hey, like it's okay that you feel this way. It's human to feel this way. We all feel this way. But guess what? You're not going to feel like this forever.
Right.
Because
Right.
I mean, I think
Hmm.
about all the times when I was in the midst of anxiety or depression, it's like you never feel like you're going to get out of it. You never feel like when is this going to end?
For
And
sure.
it does
Yeah.
end, it does pass, and sometimes
Yeah. Well, that's the definition, or that's the feeling. The hopelessness is that
hopelessness.
exact kind of thing, and it's very hard even when like if you're in like a support position. And I mean, the story that started this podcast was what I went through,
Yeah.
9 months of just suicidal thoughts all day, every day. But it was triggered by getting off a ton of meds in a real bad way. And
Mhm.
I went through it all again before COVID and at the beginning of COVID. And I think the last time I saw you guys was when I was doing better, but it was like me and Jacob Spodek went and like hung out in your backyard with
That was
Cody
cool.
when you guys were like playing like movies in your backyard. I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember. It was like on a Monday night after we went to the thing that Jacob and I used to go to at our church. But yeah, miss you guys. Miss those Monday nights of preaching in the backyard and dogs barking. But no, I like the thing about the woods. And if you can, yeah, and like to the point of you being like, I was going through some stuff. I mean, the timing is always like, we'll do the podcast when you want to like talk
Yeah.
about it. But also it's like sometimes we wait, um, even like with sobriety or anything. You're like, oh, I'll just, I'll let you know when I've been good for a really long time, which is okay. That's okay. But it's interesting to like talk to people when they're struggling, which I get. That's like a harder thing
Yeah.
to sell people on. Like, hey,
Oh,
talk to me
for
when you're
trust
in
me,
your
right now,
episode. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like right now,
yeah.
like I said, 2 weeks ago, something happened.
Right.
There's been a lot. I took a week off of work actually, and my
Okay.
job has been totally supportive because they know what's going on, and I guess I can't get into specifics just because, yeah.
Right. Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No worries.
But
Yeah.
like even yesterday, I had this moment yesterday actually where um, the name of the person that hurt me, came up, and I felt my body just begin to shake, right?
Really.
PTSD, one
Hmm.
of the ways that your body, like your body remembers the emotions and remembers the feelings, it remembers the pain. And
Right.
so my body yesterday, I felt it going literally into freeze mode and like fight and flight mode, and I started shaking. And Cody wasn't home at the time. We went off to go pick up an RC car for Chloe's birthday, and I'm like shaking. I'm like, if I don't get hugged right now, like I'm
Really.
going to like
Hmm.
lose it. And
Interesting.
so I
Okay.
literally ran over to my next door neighbor, and she opens the door and she sees me and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like shaking. I'm like, I need you to hug me as hard as you can. And
Hmm.
so she did that,
Hmm.
and I think that's important too, just to say, because like part of mental health is self-awareness, is understanding your body and understanding, like I understood yesterday when I was feeling this way that, okay, I am in this moment right now. I need help. Where can I go for help? What kind of help do I need? So I was able to know, like, right off the bat, like, what I needed to do. And because I
Mm,
was self-aware enough to understand my own body, understand my own needs,
yeah.
I was able to get that help right away. And my neighbor is amazing, and she, like, gave me the biggest, longest hug she could. And in the
Yeah.
process
Mm,
of her doing that, like, I felt my body come down. I felt my body just, start to release all of that pressure, that tension, that worry, that weight, all because of a simple hug, So
wow.
to,
Mm,
like, if you want to, like, I'm at this place right now where I feel mental health is really connected to self-awareness. Like,
right.
we need to allow ourselves to feel, but to know that this feeling is going to pass. And I always tell myself, whenever anything bad happens, even when the bad thing happened 2 weeks ago happened, I
Mhm.
just look in the mirror. I'm like, you're not going to feel like this forever. You're not going to feel like this forever. Like, you're like, not even telling myself that I'm going to be fine, because I mean, what's that going to do, right? Like, oh, you're going to be
Right.
fine. But it's like, I
Right.
just look at
Right.
myself and I'm like, you're not going to feel like this forever. It's
Mm,
okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to want to have all these emotions and feelings. But just
right.
know, Sam, at the end of the day, you're not gonna feel like this forever. And I think
Right.
having that approach about life and about pain and about difficult situations, has been really helpful for me. And it's something that I'm trying to, now instill in my daughters, is like,
Yeah.
yes, you're sad. Yes, you are mad. You're not going to feel like this forever, but allow yourself to feel this way, because it's part of the human experience, you know?
Yeah. I agree totally. And well, I think some of it is some of the things like to the point about how it lives in your body and trauma is complicated. I'm like, I have the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and it
Ooh.
gets quoted all the time. I'm like, I think I should try to read this, but I'm like, anyway, I have so many books that
The
I've
body does
started.
keep the score, though.
Well, we thought
Jared.
about doing it for our book club. I have a book club on Sunday with the Swodek brothers and some other
That's a really good,
guys,
you
and
should.
we probably won't do it just because it's like one of those like it's super long. And anyway, but like the point is, so some of it is that I think it will pass, but some things that we keep experiencing over and over again, and this is why it's complicated because it's like
Yeah.
you don't want to shame people, right? Like, oh, you've had depression for 20 years and some spiritual ideas like go to a seminar and get healed this weekend, right? And I've done plenty of that,
Yeah.
right? And I've had so many people pray over my bipolar and I go, still the same, still
Still
there,
saying.
right? Right. So anyway, that's another conversation because I do think it's like, well, what does healing look like? Is healing over time, or in scripture we see miracles like Jesus just heals someone and it's like how long did that take? Like 10 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I think if something gets repeated, kind of to your point about self-awareness, I think it's more like that's an invitation to work on it because I think we can some things that are being caused by trauma or actual memories, um like I'm thinking of new life stuff, right? Like when we were like Billy's discipleship thing, I think he was onto something with some of that stuff, like the trauma. I was like, that's a real thing, man. And
No, it is.
that doesn't just get broken off of you by a prayer, right? That's not how that
Yeah.
works. But so if that makes sense, I agree with you. It does pass, but then, and I'm trying to do this in my own life. I'm not saying this from a place of like, oh, I'm all healed up. I'm like, no, I'm still talking about how I'm my dad and I'm like 38. Like,
Dude,
you
same.
know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know how old you are, but I think we're like close in age. But
37.
okay,
37.
there you go. Okay, we're like, right. Yeah, because Cody's older than you, right?
Yeah, 9
Yeah.
years older.
Oh, okay. But yeah, and it's just like anyway, it's like, are we gonna be talking about mom and dad till like we're dead? So
Probably.
yeah,
We
probably.
probably will. Even though we love our parents, like, I
Sure,
mean,
sure, sure.
the wounds still run deep. The trauma is
Yeah,
still real.
yeah,
I actually had this
yeah,
really good conversation with my dad actually the other day. So,
yeah.
in my family, there's four of us. There's my older sister and me, my younger brother Victor, Micah, and Victor. Now, out of
Oh,
all of us,
nice.
Victor, unfortunately, he's the one that's kind of struggled the most, probably mentally, with mental health, and
Okay.
it's channeled into like substance abuse, like But I was having this really interesting conversation with my dad the other day, and I was really really touched by it, which is kind of weird. But my dad was talking to me about how when they took my brother to go see like a therapist, so my
Mhm.
brother, he's in the process of recovering from heroin use. It's been a
Oh,
7 year
wow.
long battle, and a lot of it has come because of the trauma that we experienced as kids.
Okay.
But my parents, so they took him to a counselor, and the counselor was talking to my brother. My mom was in the room, and the counselor was like talking to him, my brother, about his substance abuse. And the counselor more or less is like, is there anything in your childhood that you can think of that would like help us understand, why you're in this place that you are? And my dad said that he walked out of the room because he just didn't want to hear it. He's just because it's just so painful. But my mom came out of that room and just being like, like talking to my dad, like, like I've been thinking about this and about how what I like the way that I was when the kids were little, how it's translated into their adulthood, and how she was just like, wanting to start to have conversations with us about, what was the impact that she had, when
Mhm.
she was not doing well, when she wasn't getting the help that she needed, when she was either too ashamed or not
Mhm.
didn't feel that she deserved a happy life. But it was this moment where I just looked at my dad and I'm like, that's really cool. Like, that's really cool that mom could see and just be like, you know what, like be self-aware enough to understand and recognize like my own trauma, was projected onto my kids, like, and for her to like now want to open up about that, like, was a really cool
Mhm.
moment.
Mhm.
um
Yeah,
you know and like, I mean, we're all works in progress, and I think that's another thing. Is like we think about like, healing, like we think it's instantaneous, it's overnight, it's something that's going to happen immediately, but it really is a process. It's ebbs and flows, it's waves, it comes and goes, and some days the
right,
tide is higher than the others, and some days the tide's super far off. And it's
right.
just something that we have to figure out how to manage for the
Mhm.
rest of our lives, right? Like,
Yeah,
whether it be through therapy, whether it be through books, whether it be through unconventional means. Um,
yeah,
but I by no way, like, even though like my life is good and by all accounts my life is amazing, there will
right,
always
right.
be that trauma. There's always going to be that continuous work, right? Have you ever seen? Okay, question. Do you have Apple TV?
Um, I had it a little bit when my foot broke. I was watching, are you gonna tell me about a show? I don't
Yeah.
always have it. I've had it. The therapy show. Oh,
Yes.
I watched it. So good with Jason Segel shrinking.
JJ Siegel, like, and I think the thing that always like that stands out is like when Harrison Ford's like, "Do the work,"
Yeah,
right? Like,
that show
do
is
the work.
so good. I can't wait for season 2. I gotta look it
It's
up if
so
it's
good.
out. Yeah, I watched it. I watched it. I started it like a long time ago, and then I binged it just like at the beginning of the year because with
Yes.
my broken foot, and I love Jason Segel a lot. I think he's great in
Yeah.
like everything. But
But I just love, like I said, I just love like the line that like when he's just like, "Do the work, like do the work," and it's like we're gonna have to be doing the work for the rest of our lives. And that's not to say
for
like,
sure,
oh, we're always
yeah,
gonna be. It's like a hopeless endeavor. It's just like, no, it's
yeah,
to be human. Like, we're always a work in progress. Like, there's
yeah,
nothing wrong with being a work in progress. I mean, some of the best art is, like when I'm painting something, like sometimes like I don't want to finish something because like in the
right,
midst of the progress, I'm like, ooh, this actually looks really cool. Like, I feel like finishing it would actually make it not as good as like what it is now, and
yeah,
I think people need to be okay with like, hey, like, guys, we're all work in progress. It's okay. It's okay
yeah.
to feel like you're never gonna be okay.
Well, there's work. Yeah, it is work, and it is always, I think if we say we're bored or, life is dull or these things, it's like that can be from a lack of, there's always something to learn, right? From people, from
Always.
yourself. But the work is going to happen if you don't get help, right? Like it's going to be work in the direction of more like trying to get out of like a survival mode, right? Because we're all
Yeah.
surviving without really, surviving is not really a choice. I mean,
Yeah.
we're just surviving. It's more just like there's layers to it where hopefully we can get to a point where like you know, we do really have gratitude, and it's not just like a gratitude list. It's actually like a feeling that we have. But along the points of you painting, yeah, you're like a super good artist. And I don't know if I realized that when I knew you at New Life. I think because I've seen, have you always been that way? And you like paint, you're like painting stuff on
Yeah.
buildings, right?
So actually, yeah. So, art, I've always used art.
Right.
I've ever since I was a little kid, my grandma, my abuela, she was a really amazing oil painter, and she would do these beautiful landscapes of like her childhood home in Mexico, and
Okay.
of like all the different areas in Mexico, like all the villages and stuff like that. So I grew up painting her, like just sitting next to her and just watching her. Um, Actually, when I was a teenager, that's really when I really started getting into art, because during my teenage years, that was around the time my parents were separating. That was also around the time that I had like my first like teenage heartache. And teenage heartache is always like, oh my gosh, like how am I ever gonna, it feels like the end of the world.
Same
And
here. Same here.
right,
Yeah.
you're just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm never
Yeah.
gonna love again.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
it's the first time you love or the first time you get your heart broken. I mean, it's
yeah,
not always the case for people. Some people are like, I didn't like anyone until I was 30. But it's
yeah,
like,
no.
you're so, yeah, anyway, I can tell
Yeah,
you
when you're
stories.
16 and you have your first like major heartbreak, and you like are you just, yeah.
I'm
So
like, all those people are married now. I just got an
we're all married.
invitation to my 20-year high school reunion. It's this
Oh
summer.
gosh.
Anyway, sorry, keep
Yeah,
going.
no, I'm not doing it.
But
Like
you're
it's
so you
I don't
wait,
want to fly back.
you're like a year away because we're like a year apart. I graduated
No,
2004.
no, I'm 04 too.
No way.
Yeah,
So
I'm 2004.
yours is coming up soon too.
It is,
I didn't
yeah.
go to my 10 year. I mean, it would be fun because it's in Colorado, which would be a great
Oh,
excuse to go back. And I just was more friends with like people I went to church with more than like my high school. So it would be cool to see people. Anyway, okay, back to you. But I was
I don't
just
know.
like, does
I
that
feel
make me
like,
feel old? 20 years? Like, doesn't that make you feel old?
oh gosh, yeah.
You're like 20
When
years is
you
not,
go
it's
to
not
the
like your
grocery,
50 year, but yeah.
no, dude, when you go to the grocery store and they're playing like Linkin Park in the background, you're just like,
Dude,
what?
I just went back to work this week, and my friend, he's like, dude, you want to go see Blink 182 this summer?
Oh my god.
I was like, heck yes, I do. I was talking about Warp Tour.
Oh
Like
god.
I went anyway, and then somebody posted recently like Christian metal bands from like the early
Oh my
2000s, like
gosh.
Blind Side and like Under
Skrillex,
Oath. Oh my,
under, oh
it
my
was all
god.
this anyway. I was like, holy cow, this was like 20 years ago. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, no. So the art thing though, like, yeah, that's it seems like that's like a because you're doing like stuff on building. Yeah, it just seems like that's like a good coping thing for you.
It's
Like
been really
how's yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So in high school, I actually that's when I really started to use art as like a form of therapy.
Okay.
I mean,
Right, right.
I'll have to send them to you, but I have so many like
Yeah.
pieces where it's like there's like one piece in particular where like I'm like in a fetal position and there's just like blood like all around me. So during my
Oh,
teenage years,
wow.
really when I began to channel to use art as like a means to kind of express like my inner turmoil with my mom, my inner turmoil with my first heartbreak, and through time that art has it went from like a form of therapy to becoming like a form of ministry, where then I started using it as a means to use it for ministry, basically for glorification of God and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
so it went from therapy to that. But even in that, even like in the day, like, even now, I mean, um I recently did a fence over by the elementary school of just really big flowers. And like I said,
Hmm.
the past couple of months, I've been going through not even necessarily a season of depression and not necessarily a season of anxiety, but there's been like a lot of pruning of friendships, and it's
Right.
been really painful. And so with that going on in the background, art and being expressive, and even in that, in like serving others, has been really helpful. I mean,
Mm.
with that art thing, like I'm not getting paid to do all these art pieces, all these things. I'm
Okay.
getting paid. Yeah, I'm getting like the materials. Like people are paying for the materials. But in regards to like what I'm doing it just out of service. And I
Okay.
will say that that's also been like really helpful for me, as I'm navigating these changing waters in my life, as I'm navigating having to prune
Right.
relationships people that I really did care about. And and the hurts and the disappointment that comes with it, giving back to my community in form of art, giving back to my city has been really good and really therapeutic
Yeah.
to just kind of distance myself from like my situation and what I'm feeling and being like, you know what, like I'm gonna go ahead and do this and take attention away from what I'm feeling and experiencing at this moment. And not a means of like deflecting or avoiding it, but just understanding like I'm going through this and this sucks. I'm gonna go ahead and do this because I know that
Yeah.
this will help me feel better about like,
Hmm.
okay, this
Hmm.
happens, but life is still full of possibilities. Life is still full of beauty. There's still moments that I can create myself that can like help me not focus on this, but like
Right.
continue to push forward and to not just
Yeah.
survive, but to find myself in places where I feel like I'm thriving.
Yeah.
So art has been a really good means to accomplish that.
Yeah. Well, you're really good at it. I've
Thanks.
seen some of your stuff. You guys should go. Do you have like a website or you just put it on Facebook or Instagram? Do you have like an
Um,
Instagram account or you just because it's worth probably, I mean, it's up to you
yeah.
what you want to do.
I mean, I've thought about dedicating an actual page to that, but as of right now, I'm like, I don't know. I'll
You're
see.
right.
I'll see how I
For
feel. But
19.99 a month, I can guarantee you 10,000 followers. Just kidding. I get
pretty much
so many of these things with anyway. Okay.
be like an OnlyFans page, but for art.
For real, I actually think that that exists. I think when we think of OnlyFans, we only think it's like sexual. I think it's just whatever, right? It's like
Yeah,
chopping wood in your backyard or something.
would.
There's people that have YouTube channels of just, there's this podcast guy I listen to, and he talks about how he's like, dude, this guy has thousands of views, and all he does is like chop wood or like whatever, like homemade.
Is he
They
shirtless?
well, or something like he's just like it's like a home improvement kind of thing where like they just
Okay.
document them working on things, and I'm like, why would you want to watch that? I don't know, unless you're trying to learn how to. Yeah, this is sure. Yeah, they're
I mean,
leaving
the
that. They're,
University of YouTube is very helpful. The University of YouTube has helped me fix many things around the house.
yeah, I
So
was gonna say, I know. That's anyway. We got AI and we got YouTube for kids. I'm like, this would have been helpful with math because now I'm like, you probably could just go and figure out. But yeah, I wanted to ask you too, like, where are you at in your faith journey, right? Because I know that like your experience of probably like working in ministry, you know, that's like a double-edged kind of thing. Like right where it's like, anyway, but I mean, where are you at with God now in like a, you know,
yeah.
maybe we
So
talked about this a long time
yeah,
ago, but because like I think I've done a lot of some
yeah.
deconstructing in the last few years,
Oh gosh, yeah. A lot of deconstructing. So in 2017, after Chloe was born,
Yeah.
I definitely went through a long, good 2 years where I just kind of was like, if God's real, he sucks. Like if
Okay.
God's real, and like, why does he let, people represent him that, do more harm than good?
Right.
And then I think it was also perfect too when it happened because, so that's 2 years, 2017, 2018, 2019, and then 2020 happens, right?
Okay.
When
Right.
2020 hits, that's when I really hit like my deconstruction phase where it's just like, because you had all these social causes going on, you had COVID going on, we were all isolated. So there was a lot of deconstructing happening through that time period of my life. And I think during that time is when I really started kind of focusing on like, okay, God, like, who are you in regards to social justice? Who are you in regards to the church? Like, who are you really? And
Right.
I
Right.
think what I really began to realize is like my appreciation actually of Jesus actually, became more.
Right.
Like you grew up in church and you're like, oh, Jesus is amazing. Jesus loves you. Jesus died for you. But then after going through what we went through
Hmm.
ministry and burnout, through experiencing like the underbelly of church, which isn't always fun, but we're human. So, like I forgive you. Guess what? I forgive you guys, like I really
I
do.
forgive you guys.
I left them. I actually left like a couple years ago. I left them.
Not funny, guys. It was just funny the way you said that. Sorry.
No, but it is true. It's funny, but it's good, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I
yeah.
left
No,
I
it's
left a
powerful.
five-star
Yeah, yeah.
review, and I was like, they have a great children's ministry, because like I was just like, you know what, like I'm not going to stay here forever. Like I'm choosing not to stay here forever. But where I am now, especially since moving to Texas, like there is this. So the best way I can put it is that I struggle with faith in regards
Right.
to belief. I
Okay.
I always actually have. I've always been more
Okay.
skeptic. I've always erred on the sides of like, like I kind of need some scientific proof or archaeological proof.
Hmm.
I admire people that have full belief, that have no problem believing in heaven. Like I envy those people. Like I envy people that are just like, yes, God is real,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
there's days and there's times when I'm like, are you really real? Are you really
Right.
there? Like, is there really
Right.
something at the end? But a while ago, I was having a really great conversation with my friend who's Orthodox, Coptic Orthodoxy. And he was explaining how the original term of faith is actually not correct. That the Western world, when we look at faith, we think about, this is a belief. Like,
Hmm.
I have belief that there's a God. I have belief in Jesus. But the original meaning of faith is actually tied to faithfulness, which is
Hmm.
tied to I am faithful to you, as like a husband and wife, right? I am faithful to my husband, Cody.
Right.
I am there. I continue to pursue him even in the hard times, right? So when you look at faith through the terminology of what it originally meant, which is faithfulness, I
Right.
could say that I have complete faithfulness in the cause of Jesus and in God. So even though I'm like, I feel at times that I'm walking in the dark woods and I'm not really sure where I'm going in regards to religion or God or what He's called me to do, or even in His belief, like I have faith in regards to I am faithful to His teachings.
Hmm.
I have faithfulness in regards to like, even though there's days when I don't really believe He's there, like I'm like, no, I'm gonna keep on pursuing this. I'm not just gonna stop and just be like, okay, I guess this is what it is.
Right. Hmm.
So I
Yeah, I
have
like
faith.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have faith in that regard. So on the good days and the bad days, I'm like, okay, I don't feel you right now, or I don't think you're there right now, or I don't even think you're real. But my faith is actually stronger because
Right.
I'm not coming from a place of like I have absolute belief and conviction. Now I've moved into a space where it's like I'm going to continue to be faithful even when I don't feel like it, even when I don't think it's real, even when I don't think it's plausible,
Hmm.
but I'm faithful. So
Yeah,
I
I like
I
that.
do read my Bible. I do, on
Yeah.
occasion will attend church here or there. I will, I work at a children's ministry,
Yeah.
and I get to run chapels, and I love it so much
Oh,
because
that's
like
cool.
I'm teaching
Yeah.
these kids about God, and like I said, like to be honest, like there's certain times when I'm like I'm not even sure if you're even real, God,
Right.
but I'm gonna
Right.
keep on following. I'm gonna keep on holding on. I'm like,
Yeah.
so yeah, so yeah. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Well, it's just, I mean, I think for me, it's more, there's been all this controversy around the House of Prayer with Mike Bickle. I don't know if you know about it. It's really bad, like sexual
Oh
allegations.
gosh.
And yeah, and I mean, but the idea is like God's not a system, right? And I think where we get disappointed is that, we were looking to church to be the exact
Yeah.
representation, right? And so it's hard if you've been in church your whole life, right? Because that just means there's more room for disappointment. And
Even
I
more
mean,
room to be disappointed.
well, yeah, but then there's the beauty in that too. And then I think, the ambition to be like on stage in ministry. I mean, that's been like my whole entire life, really. I mean, that's not what I'm doing now, but that thinking is still there. And so it's like, is it possible? I think community is important. And I think
Yeah.
connecting with people is important. And I think sometimes people maybe deconstruct to the point where they're just like, I don't want any friends, F everyone. And it's like, well, no, don't do that. But I think we can find God or see, to your point about not always believe, like finding God good through lots of different things besides just maybe just only church, or like to your point about you going and doing art, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's that's part of it, but I think a lot of times we can be afraid to do that, right? And then yeah, it's complicated because it's like God works everything together for good,
Yeah.
right? That's like what people
But I think it's
say, and
also
it's like,
cool,
yeah,
something
yeah,
that never caught my attention before until after
right,
deconstructing is like, who did Jesus hang out with?
yeah,
He wasn't hanging out with the Pharisees. He wasn't hanging out with like the
right.
Sadducees.
All the
He wasn't
outcast of
he was hanging
society,
out with
yeah,
all
yeah.
like he was hanging out with all the fuck ups. Sorry. Like he
Well,
was
no, that's fine. Yeah,
yeah.
it's okay.
But
Tons of
like,
people
he was
ghost on
hanging
here.
out with Zacchaeus, he was hanging out with
Yeah,
the guys that would have never gotten the attention of church leaders, like, he was he was a champion of people that weren't in the church.
right.
He would fight and with church leaders, like, he church leaders didn't like him, and I think knowing that and finally kinda understanding that and just like,
Hmm.
"Oh, hey, like,
Yeah,
me and Jesus, we actually have a lot more in common, like, we
yeah,
actually both are, at this place where we're kind of like, like, we get in trouble with church leaders sometimes, and
well, I agree. Yeah, well, that's the part that's hard though, is that like, do you let homeless people wander into your church, right? Do
mm,
you actually let someone who's a prostitute or the and there, like leprosy in the Bible time, right? Well, what is that equivalent to now, right?
yeah.
Well, or the whole homosexual conversation, all these things. Do you actually
Oh
really
gosh.
have those people be around? And most for the most part, we don't see that, right? We see people who look like us at
Yeah.
church. We don't see the diversity, and that's anyway. That's cool. Yeah. Well, okay. So closing thought, because I'm sure we've been talking for like I think an hour, which is awesome.
And by
And
the
I know.
way, I would love to talk more about deconstruction. Like, I'm
Yes. Yeah.
just
Well, let's do this
FYI, just
again.
FYI, like, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
laid out in bed. I have surgery next Friday, so I'm gonna be like laid out with nothing to do. So we could always set up
Heck
something for
yeah. I would love to
discussion.
do a
So
whole. I've had Benji on like 3 times, and they're
yeah.
all like the first time it was well, anyway, and I'm just like, did you want to just talk theology for like and they're like hour and a half, and I had Mike Gerbrandt on. We talked for like an hour. Anyway, I just do what I want. It's my podcast. I know
Yes.
it's an excuse to hang out with people. No, I know I'm trying to set something up with my friend Brantley. We're gonna talk about we're gonna do a whole episode on like our experience at IHOP, and then I would love that. Yes, I'm on the journey, and a lot of it is because of the Swodek brothers. So,
Yes.
and our book club, and I love those
Jacob
guys.
and Josh are amazing. Jacob has
Yeah.
been amazing. Josh, man, I am so glad that I met Josh when I was 16 years old, man.
I
That
was gonna
guy, he's
say it's so funny how we're all connected, right? Because they knew you when you guys were at Mosaic, no, before Mosaic, right? Or no?
I mean, Josh knew me when I was a
Right.
teenager, like when I was in leadership and when I was like super excited and fire
That's
on
right. I've talked to
for
him about
God.
it. Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's seen like the
Where did you
journey of
guys meet
like
again? What church was it?
faith
Oh,
community,
oh, Faith Community. That's it.
that
Okay.
big old mega church.
Is it still around? Oh, yeah. That's the what is in like Covina or something.
It was in Covina. It's not really around, but that's a whole nother
Okay,
story.
I'm
So, but yeah,
remembering. Yeah, now I'm remembering this them talking about. Yeah, yeah. Well, Josh has been coming to the book club. Um he hasn't been coming since the beginning, Jacob, and since the beginning, but I get to see him now on Sundays, and I love that guy. So I love the whole Swodek clan. So
yeah.
yeah, I would love to keep talking about these things because I think that there is hope in um I, I don't know, like trying to do your own kind of church thing without church or something or whatever. It's just like I don't know, maybe we need to start our own church together. Just kidding.
Right. So,
Online on Zoom. But no, I was gonna say yeah, I would love to do that. Oh, you're having surgery? I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, I have ACL surgery next Friday, so I'll be
ACL like on your knee?
yeah.
Oh shoot. I know.
Yeah, I tore my
Yeah.
ACL at work, at the preschool,
Oh
turning off
no.
I did it in the most, the funniest, silliest way ever. I was turning off a bubble machine, and my foot slipped and, yeah, retore my ACL, but my job and my pastors, they've been amazing, and they're taking good care of me, so that's helped a lot,
Okay.
seeing when you experience, like, people in the church that are, like, genuine and amazing, like, you're just like, "Okay."
Yeah, that's awesome. I know. I think I told you I broke my foot. I
Yeah.
was playing football and I ran into a pillar.
Ooh.
And I just went back to work this week and like my foot still hurts. So I'm gonna be doing I'm gonna keep working, but like a little bit less hours starting this coming week, which will be
Yeah,
I think a little bit better. I'm just like, ah man, this sucks. But no, some of it was good and then some of it was like, all right, I
yeah.
need to get back to work. Um yeah,
Right, hey,
what
I
is
gotta be heading out soon, though.
what'd you say?
I gotta be heading out soon. I have a
Oh,
lunch
okay.
in, like,
Okay.
20 minutes.
My last thought, yeah, well,
Yeah.
this won't take too long. What advice do you give to people who are maybe they're deconstructing around their mental health, but like, you know, the person who's struggling and looking for hope, and then we'll be done. So, like, what would you say? I mean, you've already given a lot of things that have helped you and
Yeah.
antidotes and things and
I would
experiences.
say get yourself out in nature, get yourself somewhere far away from noise, whether it be if you're in Southern California, go on a hike.
Yeah. Yeah.
Physical exercise is really good, to get yourself out of your own comfort zone. Remind yourself, that you're not that it doesn't that you're not gonna you don't have to feel this way forever. I know sometimes it's hard because we get hopeless and we get stuck in, like, this cycle of, like, it's never gonna get better, but, um, as someone who has attempted to kill herself back in 2017, I can tell you that, man, I'm glad
Mm.
that I didn't.
Hmm.
I'm glad that I was able to, find purpose in the pain and that I actually I took that pain and I made it purposeful, because you can do that as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I know people say, like,
Yeah.
God works all things together for your good, and sometimes, like, hearing that, you're like, so you're saying God put me in this situation?" Like, that's not
Well,
helpful. But what's helpful to me is
sure.
just understanding
Yeah.
that God has made us as creators, that we participate in the act of creation, and that we can be creative in our pain, and we can be creative in our hopelessness, and, that essentially we have the power to get ourselves out, but it does take a lot of work. It's not overnight,
Hmm.
but just
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
you don't have to feel this way forever. You don't have to stay here forever, but it's
Right.
okay to experience loss and pain and grief. Like, those are all part of the human condition, that God wired us that way. Um, but just know that there is help, that there are people out there. There's hotlines that you can call when you feel that you've exhausted your friends and your family with the same thing, because I think that's another thing is that I mean, I would be something I would love to talk about another time is
Yeah. Yeah.
when you feel like you're just stuck and you feel like everyone's getting tired of you. Guess what? They're not.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
we do this to ourselves, but yeah,
Mhm.
just keep on going. Keep on
Yeah.
going. Don't just stop, you know. Camp out when you need
For
to
sure.
camp out in those spaces of mourning and grieving, but just know, like, you don't have to stay there forever.
Yeah.
So,
Well, wonderful. All right. I know you got to go, and this has been great. I'm glad we made it happen, and it's
yes.
all.
We'll do this
But
again soon. So,
yes, we will have you back. All right. Well, Sam, thank you for being on the podcast, and we'll be in touch. Enjoy the rest of your day. And when's surgery? A week from today?
yeah, a week from today.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll stay in touch with you about that. So.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll see you
Deconstruction
around.
part 2 next time. All
Yeah,
right.
sounds
Okay. All right. All right.
bye.
Bye. Okay. Take it easy. That's a wrap on the talk today. Loudernovpodcast.com/episodes. Instagram link and also donate, guys. The reason why the donate is there, and you're hearing this at the end of the episode, because this is a test. See if you made it this far. Yeah, I love doing this podcast. Please consider making a one-time donation or monthly donation. You can donate there through the link through the website, and any other information from today's show, also in the notes. And guys, thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for this community. Let me know what you thought about today's episode. And guys, we'll see you next time. All right. Bye.